Are you afraid of death? Are you afraid to leave and have nothing on the other side? And it may be that this happens, but there is more evidence than proof of something beyond, whether it's heaven or hell. We still don't know. But in that final moment, people encounter divinities, deceased relatives, and even improve suddenly from a terminal condition. Today, I'm going to present to you the most shocking evidence that there is something after death. And before presenting data and names, let me tell you a case. Many years ago, a man named William Peters was working as a volunteer in a hospital when he met Ron, a former naval officer with stomach cancer. Knowing that Ron's situation wasn't good, the volunteer decided to accompany him on the tough journey and began dedicating 3 hours a day to him. Between conversations and readings of stories, William went through an experience that changed his life. One day, Ron was semi-conscious, struggling to survive. As a volunteer, he read passages from a book aloud. Suddenly, William felt a kind of supernatural force pushing his spirit out of his body, and looking around, he saw another spirit, Ron, and according to the volunteer, the former naval officer looked directly at him, smiled, and had a calm expression, as if he knew what was happening. Then, suddenly, as before, William's spirit returned to his body, and after a few minutes, Ron was no longer alive, and everything happened in the blink of an eye. William never stopped wondering if he was delirious or if it was real. It turns out that he didn't know at the time, but there is a name for this case: shared death experience. After that day, the volunteer became a psychotherapist and founder of the Shared Crossing Project, which studies phenomena involving the end of life, such as shared death and near-death experiences, which you may have heard of. The difference is that while in the near-death experience, a critically ill person glimpses what comes after the end of life, in the shared death experience, a close person also experiences the sensation of leaving this world. There are stories of this kind since the late 19th century, of soldiers being companions to the dying in battle, doctors in hospitals, relatives close to family members admitted. Somehow, the person does not leave alone and has the opportunity to say goodbye or show themselves to someone. The expression was coined by the American doctor Raymond Moody in 2009 in the book Glimpses of Eternity. For 20 years, he conducted research on what happens after near death and found a series of similar accounts, such as people walking through tunnels to a bright light or encountering spirits. And from the beginning, Raymond never believed that these experiences were simply related to a condition of the human body, such as a lack of oxygen in the brain. And besides, how to explain a healthy person going through a shared death experience? It's also worth noting that there is another way for this same type of experience to happen, like when one person dreams of another's death and wakes up to discover that it really happened. A case of this type happened to the renowned artist Caledonia Curry, and it draws a lot of attention. Before moving on to another real-life case, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us a lot. Let's go back to the case. In 2013, she had a dream surrounded by snow. At the end of the moment, the snow began to take on the appearance of flowers and pass through her body. At the same time, she heard her mother's voice. At that very moment, Caledonia woke up, certain that her mother had passed away, but she couldn't believe it was possible because of a dream. Shortly after, the artist received a call from her sister, confirming that death had indeed come for both their mother. And is that not enough for you to believe? So let's go back to Dr. Raymond Moody as inspiration for one of his books. He had a conversation with a psychiatrist named George Hitt, who was dead for 9 minutes when he was 20 years old. George said he was declared dead twice by the responsible doctor but still came back to life. That alone is surprising, but what happened during that time is even more surreal. George said he left his body without knowing he was dead and wandered through the hospital ward, finding it strange that no one could see him. Upon returning to the room, he saw that they had covered his body with a sheet. Suddenly, the room became very bright, and none other than Jesus Christ appeared. Before returning to his own body, Christ guided him on a journey through space and time, in dimensions he could never imagine. For some, George's experience is extremely valid, but we can't help but question the fact that he was already a Christian before the experience. It's not very convenient that he saw Jesus and not Buddha, Krishna, or a deity from another religion. The question makes sense, but it doesn't cover the entire near-death experience because there are many other cases, and the encounter with Jesus is just one of them. In the book Life After Life, Raymond gathered more than 150 stories of all kinds. Some people simply feel at peace when they die. Others leave their bodies and go somewhere. Some walk through a dark tunnel, and others see a very bright light at the end of it. There are also reports of people meeting with beings other than Jesus Christ, patients who go back in time to a very beautiful place. Let's go a little further now. Back in the 19th century, the Society for Psychical Research wrote an article about deathbed visions. And one of the main authors of this work was a man named Sir William Barrett, who spent decades listening to stories from his surgeon wife about strange things that happen before or after people die. He even wrote a book about all this, but ended up dying a year before its release in 1925. The book is called Deathbed Visions by Sir William Barrett. Here's a case published in the magazine Psychology Today about deathbed visions. A patient was in an advanced stage of cancer and spent the night restless. As dawn broke, she opened her eyes and stared fixedly at a corner of the room where no one was. Then, with a smile on her face, she said, "Mother, I'm so happy to see you." In a few minutes, the woman peacefully passed away. In the 1970s, researcher Carlis Osis delved deep into the issue of deathbed visions for non-devotees of Christianity. The response is quite interesting. For example, in India, most people undergoing such experiences claim to have seen Hindu gods. Often, it is the god Yama responsible for judging a person after death. There are also reports of Amadutas, messengers of death. Sure, you might say these cases are just hallucinations of people in their final moments. However, the matter may be even more complicated than it seems. Have you heard of the terms deathbed improvement or terminal lucidity? It's a phenomenon that occurs with people who are very ill, involving a sudden improvement in these patients, almost as if they were cured. The main question is that they die shortly afterward. Could this be a last opportunity to bid farewell? According to the academic journal Nervous and Mental Disease, patients experiencing this sudden lucidity often die a few days later. Some don't even make it that far, just a few hours or even minutes. In Germany in 1922, a case was so impressive that it caught the attention of several researchers and served as the basis for many academic works. It is about Anna Katharina Emmer, a 26-year-old woman who lived in an institution for people with mental disorders throughout her life. She couldn't feed herself and supposedly never spoke a single word. Before her death, Anna had her leg amputated due to illness, and her relatives went to the hospital because doctors warned that she wouldn't survive. However, even in these conditions, Anna experienced a sudden improvement, recognizing her family as if by magic. For 30 minutes, she conversed with everyone, demonstrating intelligence and great joy. Before peacefully passing away, she even sang songs. Her case is considered quite valuable because two respected doctors in the country witnessed the terminal lucidity. But what about you? What do you think exists after death? Tell me here below. Exploring the unknown is essential to philosophy, and our quest for answers transcends the boundaries of earthly existence. In our latest video, we delve into fascinating discussions about life after death, not merely as a mystical phenomenon, but as a profound philosophical reflection. After all, philosophy seeks to comprehend not only what we know, but also what remains a mystery. Draw your own conclusions about existence, consciousness, and possibilities beyond life, challenging the confines of conventional philosophical thought. Let's question the foundations of our beliefs. Subscribe and share your opinions in the comments, as the pursuit of truth never concludes in philosophy. Until next time, a big hug and goodbye.